Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Dwayne. I go by the Mindset Coach,
My name is the Uncle Junior, and I go by the Consistency Coach.
and we're your coach for Coach's Corner. As always, like I tend to say, if you are here and you just are going to watch this episode and do absolutely nothing with the information that you obtain from the show, then you may not necessarily be in the right place. However, if you're looking to obtain some new information that you can implement in your life and actually become a better version of yourself, not just for yourself, but for the people that you know, love, and care about, you might be in the right place. In fact, I believe you were destined to be there so that you can hear the sounds of my voice, the Mindset Coach, and along with the sounds of my good friend, the Consistency Coach. So that being said, let me speak to my brother, the Uncle Junior himself, the Consistency Coach, C Square. How are you doing, sir?
Man, C Squared is doing good, Coach. Yeah, I'm doing well, man. No issues, no gripes, no complaints, no none of that. I am doing well. What about you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm with you. I have no issues, no concerns. I can't even think of something to complain about.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I'm extremely appreciative for everything and excited for the things that are to come as well. So I just kind of want to put that out there because I think that's a space where everybody should try to, at least as best as they possibly can, find themselves. Like appreciate, but then expect. And I think you'll start seeing things differently. So
You said I can't even think of anything to complain about. And
mhm,
actually, I was thinking about that, not those particular words verbatim, but I'm just like, I ain't got nothing to complain about. You know what I mean? And I know I hear, I work with people, we all have family members and we all know some people who they always got something to complain about. So I'm happy and thankful that in my where I'm at in my space right now,
yeah,
I don't really have anything to complain about. Like you said, I can't think of anything to complain about. Like if I want to complain about something, I probably gotta take a few minutes to think about something, to come up with something. But I don't have complaints readily available at the tip of my tongue, ready to fire out when coach asks me, "Hey, how's everything?" You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's something, man. Can't even think of nothing to complain about.
yeah. To that point, regardless of whether we're complaining or not complaining,
Mhm.
it's a thought that precedes it.
Yeah.
And I know that's not what we're talking about today, but I mean, even if when I was in a complaining state, I thought about the thing prior to actually complaining about a thing. Well, the same energy that it takes to think of something to complain about, it also takes that same amount of energy to think of something to be grateful about. And what
Mhm.
you'll find is that being grateful is a lot more profitable to you than complaining. So why not find a reason to be grateful?
Mhm. I know Imma say this and then Imma shut up because I don't wanna hurt nobody's feelings, right before we start the show because they asked for part 2, so we continuing on with part 2. But I know somebody, man. I got a partner, man, and something happened probably about 3 years ago, and it's still coming up. Like,
Mm,
I thought we were over I'm over it. It wasn't with me, but
right.
it was a partner of mine, and I'm like, "Man, they are still talking about this event that happened 3 years ago," and that just, to the talking point, I mean, to what we were saying, and then to our conversation tonight, I don't think that this person is necessarily healed from whatever it is that they were going through, 3 or 4 years ago because it keeps coming up. I don't even talk to the person all the time,
Yeah.
but the last few times we've talked over the last couple years, it keep coming up, and I'm just like, "Man, like, you ain't let it go yet?" You know what I'm saying? But I understand that, everybody's in a different time and space, and healing looks different for some people, and some people are just not necessarily there yet to where they're at a point to where something that happened 3 or 4 years ago is not at the tip of their tongue. So again, I ain't trying to hear step on nobody's toe. We just getting started. So I don't want nobody to click off before they hear what we got to go before they hear what we're gonna be talking about today. So
Well,
that's my little.
to your point, which I think is rather interesting. You say I don't think that they've healed. And healing looks different from person to person.
Mhm.
Does it really? I mean, that's just, just a question, not
Yeah.
necessarily one for you to answer right now. But I mean,
Yeah.
does healing really look different, or do we
Mhm.
just believe that it does? And that gives us reason to stay where we are for a more
Mm.
prolonged period of time because I'm not finished thinking about how much I dislike what I went through. I think
Mhm.
a lot of times, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think a lot of times that's really what it is. I am still in the place where I'm recycling those thoughts, and therefore, because I'm still recycling those thoughts, I am still in that emotional space.
But, not but, however, comma, this goes back to a little bit what we talked about last week. And was talking
Mhm,
about who am I to say that this person is not healed. You know what I mean? I know speaking of talking about the degrees and
mhm.
the certificates and the backing and the knowledge that we have to kind of see these things, but it's kind of like I think think sometimes you can see when somebody's not healed because obviously if you're talking about something that I think that was very, very small, very minuscule in the scheme of big life,
Mhm.
that this is something that you still are coming up with. Like you don't even talk to the other person anymore.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I thought you've moved on from this. But again, maybe they're not healed and maybe they can't necessarily see that they're not healed. I don't know.
And I think to your point, and I'm smiling as you say that because I love the who am I question, right? Uh,
Okay.
because I wish I could pause it right there. A
Mhm.
a subjective state in which an individual has undergone, right?
Mhm.
This is healing defined. So when we ask, like, and again, I'm not harping on it, but
Mhm.
when people, especially those
Mhm.
people who are claiming to be unhealed or trying to stay in those particular spaces, the question that I ask is, did they actually do the necessary things, the necessary prerequisite things to come out of that space, or are they choosing to stay there? See, that's really what I think it is. A lot of the times, it's the fact that they're choosing to stay in a particular space. And again, to your point, you're absolutely right. Who am I? I'm
Yeah.
just a person that says that stay out of my space with your unhealed
Mhm.
self, and I don't mean that in
Yeah.
a very negative or derogatory way. I mean that in the most healthiest way I can imagine. Because here's the deal, unless that person has made the decision to move beyond the space in which they are, the people who are there to quote unquote help may not necessarily be helping. They may be enabling.
Imma ask a question later on. I
Sure.
know we haven't even
We ain't got
started the show, and we haven't even welcomed the chat or the nothing, you know what I mean? So Imma write my question down, and
yes.
Imma
I
pause,
mean,
but I got a question for later on.
okay, awesome. I love it.
Alright.
And to your point, again, as always, we like to welcome the livest audience in social media. You guys are a functional part of every show, so we greatly appreciate you guys for being here. Make sure that you hit that like button. If you have this is your first time here, make sure that you put your cursor on the lower right hand corner of your screen on top of that YouTube icon, and then there's going to be a flower. Make sure that you click subscribe, and do not forget to find that notification bell. Hit the drop down beside the notification bell and click notify all. That way, every time we go live on this show. We greatly appreciate you guys being here. We value your presence. Like I said, you're a functional part of the show. So that said, make sure that you put your perspectives in the comments. Make sure that you ask questions, because your questions are a significant part of everything that we do. So just to make sure that, just because I want to make sure we get to your question, I don't want that to bypass. But I want to go ahead and get us started so we can kind of dive into it, because
Okay.
some controversial statements can be made during these conversations. And again, these statements are not necessarily made to attack anyone, but I tend to call them defibrillators. It's kind of like designed to shock you and make you think, like, wait, maybe that's might be true. So
Mm.
that being said, let's get this party started. What if the words we use to heal ourselves are the very thing preventing humanity from becoming stronger? Right now, across the therapy offices, wellness retreats, and self help circles, we're performing a global experiment. We've weaponized the language of healing to diagnose normal struggles, pathologize discomfort, and to reframe avoidance as enlightenment. But a new data reveals a devastating side effect. Our well intentioned healing is rotting humanity's resilience muscle. And I want to say that part again because I think it's significant. Our well-intentioned healing is rotting humanity's resilience muscle. In this particular episode, which is part two of healing, or what we tend to call for this particular episode, healing hustle exposed, we dissect how 68% of people using therapy buzzwords stall at emotional adolescence while calling it growth. Let that sit in for a second. Wellness brands profits billions from keeping you perpetually in recovery. Real maturity requires trading self soothing language for shared purpose. Therefore, by the end of this conversation, I believe you'll have concrete tools to replace buzzwords with bridges and unlock humanity's next level of resiliency and potential. Ready to become are you ready to become a part of this ungovernable resiliency? If so, then let's kind of dive into this because I think this is going to be a very, very interesting and intriguing conversation. Now, we had a great conversation, I believe, last week. I think the conversation was so great that our audience requested that we continued along with part two. And that being said, I agree with them. I think this is something that we need to continue to unpack, to kind of get after the details and the concepts of this conversation. And we kind of started it off great in the beginning because you kind of shared something with a friend, and I don't know, just so everybody know, I don't know who he's talking about, and I have no idea, what the friend was talking about. That friend could have been talking about anywhere along the spectrum to um, losing a loved one, all the way to, I don't know, a
Anything.
disagreement between them and another friend. It could have
Mhm.
been that wide of a spectrum. I don't know, but at the end of the
More of the latter.
more of the latter.
More of
Oh,
the latter,
yeah.
just so people can kinda grab it a little bit.
Okay, very well. And
Mhm.
I love that. And so that being said, and thank you for at least sharing that much with us. So that being said, I want to go after the first talking point here for today, which is the undermining of collective resilience. Now, I don't think I need to kind of unpack that for anyone because those words are pretty direct, and straightforward. And so I believe that perpetual healing undermines collective resilience. And that being said, a society that fears discomfort trains fragile souls. I say it again, a society that fears discomfort trains fragile souls. And that's by Martha Nussbaum. 71% of Gen Z reports anxiety and stress directly amplified by healing content overload. And that's coming from the American Psychological Association this year, 2025. So, that being said, do you believe overused or go to therapeutic language constrains us from building shared hardship muscles?
I mean, if we go back to the data, the 71%, then based off of that, I would say, yeah. I'm relating these 2 together, and to me, it sounds like, yeah, I know sometimes how, like, I don't know what it's called, but I'm thinking this may be weaved in there somewhere. You know how when, you get that new car, you get that new Jeep Wrangler or whatever the car you get, and now all of a sudden you see them everywhere you go. Every time you turn your head, there's another one. There's one, there's one, there's one. I'm kind of mixing that in with this, when you keep hearing, "Oh, yeah, man, you probably got anxiety," or, "Yeah, man, ain't supposed to be like this." And you keep hearing these things, you're like, start questioning yourself, man. Do I got anxiety? Because like some of these words that we hear now, anxiety, emotional intelligence, a lot of these words, I'm 49. I didn't hear a lot of these words coming up. I don't know if I know these words were around because they're not brand new words in the dictionary or anything. But I can see how some people, when they hear stuff over and over and over, they start to think it. There's some disease out there, diagnosed disease that, people get, when it comes to like being sick. They hear these symptoms and then they say, well, I got this too. You know what I mean? They hear signs and symptoms of a cold. Oh, I got a cold. Or signs and symptoms of this. Oh, I got it too. So, like for me, all of that stuff kind of is coming together with this. So, I do believe that sometimes certain people, when they keep hearing you got anxiety, you need to go to counseling. You got an issue that's not normal. You got ADHD. I don't know how many people I know are self-diagnosed with anxiety. They like, hey, I got anxiety. I'm like, oh yeah, when did you get diagnosed? I was never diagnosed. Oh, but I know I got it. Someone said, oh, I got ADHD. Well, when did you get diagnosed with ADHD? Oh, I never been diagnosed with ADHD. Like I don't remember 20 years ago, I was in the military 20 years ago. I don't remember people diagnosing themselves with things. I hear a lot now of people self-diagnosing with symptoms and self-diagnosing with these diseases and these problems and stuff. So for me, absolutely, yes. I do believe that some of this overused therapeutic language constrains us from building shared hardship muscles. And that's the part that's how it affects us, I think, in a negative way. Because now we're self-diagnosing with ADHD versus I ain't got ADHD. What I need to do is I need to do X, Y, and Z. I don't have this. I just need to do this, this, and this. So for me, the answer is yes. I know I said a whole bunch, but if you just want a yes, I'm giving you the yes.
I thank you for that. I like what you did there. That the scientific term for that suggestive style of diagnosis is the Jedi mind trick. You know,
Oh.
it's the Jedi mind trick. Maybe
Did
you
you
got
say the scientific name for it?
scientific name for it.
Okay.
maybe maybe you got COVID-19. Maybe I got COVID-19. Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And it is mind-boggling. Like it is
Mhm.
so like you can see it unfold for people who don't know. And I get
Mhm.
it. I get it. In some cases, you're looking for something to kind of wrap your brain around and make sense of it all. But then, these new terms, these new symptoms and so forth and so on, they come out and they say, oh, well, this, that, and the third. And if you fall into any of these categories, then you may be that person that's still struggling with this, right? And so, yeah, I joke when I say it's a scientific term, but really that's Jedi mind trick, right?
Mhm.
You suggest it to them and they accept it as their reality. Therefore, it's their reality. And you're absolutely right when you as you start talking about it. I think for the most part, when we look at a lot of these things, a lot of these therapeutic languages and things of that nature, it gives us something to grab hold to. And that's something that we're grabbing hold to doesn't necessarily work in our favor. But the issue is that, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves now, so we'll talk about it more, but it becomes more of an identity trait than it is a thing that helps us to overcome and liberate and move forward. And I think when we talk about shared hardship muscles, I think it's important for us to identify what that looks like. And I give everybody a perfect example. Remember back when you went through basic training, you were in a group with a bunch of people that you did not know. You may have been fortunate to know one. In my case, I knew two,
Ain't no
because
none.
you ain't know none. You got him. So we went through some hardship together. And because of the hardship that we went through, the shared hardship, what happened is not only did we get to the point that we develop a level of resiliency jointly, but that shared resiliency, that shared bond that happened between us actually brought us closer together. And so even though like a lot of them I don't keep in contact with today, like if I really do believe that if I was to run across one of them walking down the street, it would be almost an instant connection, simply because we have a moment in time where we've all been through a thing. Well, I also think that the same thing can happen outside of a less organized environment. You don't necessarily have to be in basic training to experience shared hardship. You can have gone through like situations, and those like situations help you to realize that, yo, I went through this thing, therefore I can share it with you. And knowing that you're going through the thing, and that can be evidence that you can get through the thing. But a lot of times what we do is we want to share it at the level of the thing that you were in, and we talk about how you felt while you were in the thing, as opposed to the delivery that you experienced once you came out of it. And I think we have to be more intentional about those questions. But I cannot steer clear of when we learn resiliency, how it is developed within the household. So, do you believe we are failing our youth by teaching recovery rituals instead of courageous action? I ask that again. Are we failing our youth by teaching recovery rituals instead of courageous action?
Um, I don't know if it's as simple as as one or the other.
Yeah.
I think that hmm, I think yes in a sense, and I think no. Here's why. I think that if anything, we should be teaching both. Here's what I mean by that. We do need to be teaching ways to recover, from certain things. And I also think that we need to be doing some courageous pushing at the same time. It's okay to go through some hard stuff. You need to go through some stuff, and in order to like you said, to build that resilience. So, but I think, if I know this is not a would you rather or anything, but I do want to pick a side right now just for this conversation. So for right now, I'm going to pick yes. But I think it's more on a sliding scale. I'm probably leaning more towards yes. Um, but yes, I think we are failing by teaching recovery rituals instead of courageous actions, because what we say is that, maybe an example in school is, to not necessarily go. I'm trying to come up with a good example of how we are teaching recovery rituals instead of the courageous action. And that's kind of where my brain is stuck right now.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm trying to think of a really good example of teaching recovery rituals. Let's go to oh,
I give you an example real quick,
give
and
me
maybe
an example real
maybe
quick.
that'll get the wheels turning. You actually said it.
Yeah.
You mentioned emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Have you ever
Yeah.
seen where they try to teach children emotional intelligence?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So, yes. Yes. So, yes, going back to my 7 years in elementary school counseling, there was a lot of classes that we teach. That's one example right there, is the emotional intelligence. When this happens, this is what you should do. When this happens, this is what you should do. Instead of letting kids go through the process, they will be fine. There's a lot of barriers and a lot of different things that are set up, you know what I mean, to help recover from things. You know what I mean? Um, versus just allowing kids to go through things. I think the good thing about allowing kids to go through things is that they learn a lot of times they're on their own. We have kids who come in my office sometimes. So as a school counselor in high school, one thing that I do is I mediate, right? Say for instance, there's some kids and they're getting into it. There may be some bullying, or there just may be some confrontation going on. What we do, and I get it to a sense, is before they end up suspended for getting in a fight and getting suspended long term, one of the things that I do is I will mediate with the two or the three or four parties that's involved. It might be three girls and one against one girl. It may be one boy against two boys, or whatever the dynamics of it may be, there may be something going on. So they bring Mr. Martin in. Mr. Martin going in. We sit down in my office and we bring all parties together and we're talking about now that part of it. It is good. It's good to teach them. Hey, look, here are the consequences if you don't do both. You know, y'all shouldn't be bullying. Y'all in the same class together. Y'all gonna be in there for another 8 or 9 weeks together. Y'all got to figure out how y'all get along with this. So on that part of it, I think it's okay. But I think sometimes we doing so much of that that kids are not allowed to go through it. Sometimes is this thing on? Maybe sometime might need to get his behind whooped. You know what I'm saying? To go through it. Because if he go through it and get his behind whooped, maybe he'll stop the stuff that he got going on. And I'm
Mhm.
not advocating for any of that violence or any of that stuff. But man, sometimes when we grew up, man, just us going through it, bro, it just created a lot of resilience versus someone coming and talking to us and trying to teach us. I like I said, and that's why I said I understand both sides of this. I do think there is a point to be teaching these things, but not to where that's the only thing to where it's now they don't go through anything. So
Yeah.
they have no way of building up this resilience because you stopped everything off at the head. I get stopping things off before they escalate.
Yeah.
However, once them kids graduate and they go out into the world, there ain't going to be nobody to stop them. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So sometimes going through things is the best way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I,
Um,
I'm with you.
okay.
I am right there with you, bro.
Mhm.
I think when we look at recovery rituals, I think we get to the point that we turn our version of recovery to a ritual to such a degree it just becomes muscle memory for a thing.
Mhm.
And so, even in the midst of teaching that, teach a recovery ritual, what ends up happening is that they become hyper aware of the thing that can actually put them in the situation to where the recovery ritual is
Yep.
needed. Therefore, now they no longer do the thing because the recovery ritual taught me that this thing's going to be bad for me.
Mm.
If I tell you, like you say you come to my house and say I got a dog, got a
Yep.
dog, I got a big old dog, huge dog, man eating dog, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you that so many times to such a degree, you be like, man, I ain't coming to your house.
Yep.
And I get it, right? So a lot of times it's almost as though and this is two ways of looking at it. It's almost as though we're teaching them the fear up front. And so we're going to teach you the recovery of the fear, the recovery of the possible result of the fear before you actually go through the thing. That's one way. Another way is this: overprotective parenting can prevent the child from going through um, the necessary levels of I won't say anxiety, but the mental agility, the mental gymnastics that they need to go through in order to recognize that maybe what they were thinking were not necessarily the right thing to think in that particular moment, and then they get to the point of learning how to let it go earlier. So the more you're as a parent, the more you intervene, the more you prevent them from dealing with the things that life throw at them at a young age. Like Garfield just said, when they become adults, they struggle with the things that life throw at them at an older age because they do not have mental agility. What is mental agility? Mental agility is your ability to change what you're thinking at a rapid rate for the sake of a more productive outcome. Sometimes we stay so fixed with how we see things and the way we want things to be that we will keep going forward even though we see what we're doing is not working. So that's part of the concern in my mind. It's a number of them that we could talk about, but for the sake of time, I just really want to touch on those things because I think when children are raised in that environment, then they become adults and then they struggle with dealing with life, then we run into the psych pharma influence. What happened?
Looking at that red book over your shoulder again.
Oh yeah,
That's what came to my head again.
yeah, man.
That red book.
Absolutely.
If y'all don't know what that red book is, you gotta go back to watch last week's episode, part 1. And somewhere during that video, that red book's gonna pop out. So if you want to know about more about that red book, go back and watch part 1.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that gets them into what I tend to call the psych pharma influence. And recovery brands profit from your
Mhm.
stagnation. So the more you struggle with life, staying stagnant, not necessarily understanding the direction to go in life, I'm struggling in this arena. Now these recovery brands, whether we're talking medications or whether we're talking psychologists, they profit because of that. No epidemic persists without economic engine. Naomi Klein. Wellness industry's revenue grew 400% since 2020. I wonder what was going on in 2020 that made them do a study that started in 2020. We don't have to tell you, you already know the answer to that. And if you don't, just Google what major event happened in 2020 that made them go back and look at what happened since 2020. Because some people are still reeling from the psychological effects of it, and they're literally walking around on eggshells right now. So, do you honestly believe, Unc, that the healing identity is sold because it's more profitable than liberation?
Testing, test, test, test. Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Your mic is
I
on
just
loud.
want to make sure that the mic is on so they can hear my answer. Yes, yes, and more yes. I absolutely believe 100% that the healing identity is sold because it is more profitable than liberation. It goes back to that whole thing of let's look at medications and all the rumors, data, facts, whatever you want to, whether you believe it's rumors or not, whether you believe it's facts or not, there ain't no money in the cure. The money is in the money is in the medicine, right? If I can keep coach in his body in a state to where I need to sell him 15 pills every month, then that's what I'm gonna do. Once coach is healed, my money stops. There ain't no money once coach is healed. And that's why, like I tell people sometimes when it comes to therapy, when it comes to fitness, having a fitness trainer, your fitness trainer, part of their journey, part of their job is to teach you how to be able to do some of this stuff on your own. There's nothing wrong with having a trainer if you plan on being a very elite athlete. The elite athletes have trainers because they can see certain things that you, while you in it, you can't see. But I don't need, I mean, even if I have a fitness trainer, I should be learning how to eat, what foods to eat, what I shouldn't be eating. I should know how to do certain movements in when I get to the gym. If I'm 3 years in and I still can't put a workout plan together, my trainer has failed me. But again, if I got a good trainer, my trainer knows that at some point I need to train my person and then I need to be able to go and release them into the wild, whatever it looks like. I'm here for them if they want to come back and get more stuff, but at some point I need to be able to release them. So, to answer your question, yes, absolutely. That I think it's more not about the liberation, but keeping people kind of where they are, and that's what I think.
Let me tell you. So, first of all, I love your answer.
Mhm,
Here's why I want everybody to kind of pay attention to what you were saying. Even though you were talking about fitness trainer, it doesn't
mhm.
it doesn't end there, right? I think, and so let me kind of back up a little bit. The money is not in just medicating; it's also in the treatment. The treatment. That's what it's called. The treatment consists of medication and visits. Let me say it again: medication and visits. This is the ultimate goal because this is where big money is at. But this is the thing that gets you here. And if this right here can't get you here, it's going to try to keep you here. Let me say it again. If you have a psychologist, psychiatrist, any one of those things, and I'm sorry, it's not going to be a popular thing, and somebody may come for me, but don't worry about it. I got time. Make sure that you pack a lunch.
There you go.
If they're not looking to create a degree of self sufficiency in you so that you can leave them, they're not good. In fact, they're literally focused on the fact that they're going to bleed you dry because they want to keep you in this thing and get you attached to this thing, right? And this is why I always ask people, like when they want to talk to me about certain things, like what is it that where do you see yourself going, right? And I think you do such a good job when you talk about it. Either you want to talk about the past, that's not for me. I can't help you on that. I don't. That's not what my specialty is.
Hmm.
I want to plot a course for the future. Okay, that's different. Now we can talk because this is coaching, right? Even as a coach, because if you think about it, it makes better sense. And this is just me. It makes better sense to have a prolonged coaching relationship than a prolonged counseling relationship. It makes better
Yep,
sense. But here's the
absolutely.
thing. If as a coach, I'm not teaching you how to determine the desired future and then reverse engineer that so that we can actually do some things moving forward and then and let you go out and fly and spread your own wings, I'm not a good coach. So I
Hmm.
think those things that we have to consider. We have to realize if you haven't yet, please now become consciously aware of it. You have to realize that there is an identity attached to healing to such a degree that the healing sphere feels like home. So either you're talking about counseling, you're going to counseling, you're participating in counseling, you're advising people to go to counseling, that becomes a thing. But who do you think that benefits? Well, it benefits the person. Sure it does.
Yeah.
Sure it does. To a certain degree.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, what would have been more beneficial to them if mom and daddy did the right thing back here? That way, once they got here, they didn't need to do it. Now, I'm not saying mom and daddy did anything wrong. They did what they knew how to do. Moving up to here, the next best thing to do is to teach them how to independently deal with their situation. Give them the tools that they need in time and space so that they can handle life moving forward, not creating a situation to where they need to come back to the office to that person or whatever the case may be. That's where it becomes extremely dangerous. Anything else you want to add, man? Because I mean, you was on it on that one.
Man, no, you did a good job of adding to, but not taking away. Yeah, because yeah, a lot of people. I get it. I understand it, and I think sometimes people get dependent on their therapist and their coach too. Sometimes they build a little relationship. You know, every time you talk to your coach, they got good answers. They've been through some things, they got some training. It's somebody that you trust. Again, however, like you said, that trainer needs to be helping you and helping you learn some tools and some skills to where you can eventually be self-sustained. Now, there's nothing wrong with, every once in a while, every once in a while, I reach back out and I circle around with the coach. I circle around with some Eric Thomas and some David Goggins when I kind of see myself kind of slacking off or getting kind of complacent in life and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? I got coaches and mentors and stuff like that too. You know what I mean? I need to tap into that area as well. But with the training and the therapy and the coaching and the certificate, the podcast, different things like that I have over here on Tuesdays and Fridays nights, I have a lot of those things that I have. I'm not necessarily dependent on things, but I've learned a lot of things. Like I said, though, sometimes I get a little, I can get a little complacent in life because things may be working well in my life. You know what I mean? And I think when things are working well, um, sometimes it's a good time to go and reach into that bag of tricks or look at some of those things because it's only a matter of time if you believe that life is full of ebbs and flows that eventually something else going to come back around. So if I can get in that space for a little bit, I may learn something else that's going to help me when I go back through one of those ebbs and flows or those ups and downs when I'm one of those downs in life. So yeah,
Yeah.
man, I appreciate you adding that little bit extra onto that because that was powerful as well.
Yeah, man. And I think it's another thing to be said about having somebody who knows you personally
Mhm.
compared to a person that you can go and find on the internet and listen to what they're saying as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I make sure that I practice is kind of like reverse of what you just said. Every now and then, for people who I've coached, and they've gone off and doing great and wonderful things, every now and then I reach out to them and see
Yeah.
how they're doing and see where they are and so forth and so on. Not that I'm trying to bring them back into coaching. No, I am curious about about their success, because I like celebrating people's success. So I think that's an important thing. I think another thing that you will find in these areas, and I'm sure everybody remember when this became a hot button topic, probably right around the beginning of the healing conversation, is people talk about boundaries. And
Mm.
we talk about boundaries and boundaries this and boundaries that, but I don't think for the most part people talk about boundaries in the right degree. And so what ended up happening, instead of people having a better understanding of boundaries, they developed this thing called the avoidance trend. And the avoidance trend is all about boundaries now often enabling them to avoid certain situations, right? And it's not the same. Any shield used aggressively becomes a cage. Octavia Butler. 61% use boundaries to evade accountability in relationships. This comes from the Journal of Applied Psychology. And so I think I want to kind of touch on this one because time is really getting away from us again, as always. Um, when and why, and this, and you can answer the when or the why or both. When or why did protecting my peace become code to refusing meaningful friction? I'm gonna ask it again because this one, I know everybody who is listening to this have heard this phrase. When or why did protecting my peace become code for refusing meaningful friction?
Let me start with the wind. I think it may have had something to do with those four numbers you put up there earlier. 2020. Around that time, maybe I start hearing buzzwords about protecting my peace. Protecting my peace. I gotta protect my peace. Um, Here are my thoughts on peace, first of all. I think peace starts and comes from within. I think it comes from higher, but it lives within. You know what I mean? I am at a place in my life where I have peace, right? No one can come in and mess up my peace. I have peace already. You can come in and you can try to throw rocks at it or something like this, but if I already have peace, you can't really mess up my peace. Now, that's just me. That's how I believe. That's what I think. Why? I think maybe why, because now we don't have to get into it. You know what I mean? Now I can deflect. Now I can just say, "Oh well, I ain't dealing with coach because I got to protect my peace." You know what I mean? I ain't dealing with Roe because I need to protect my peace. I'm just saying. I'm cutting the chats off because I don't want to hear what they got to say because I got to protect my peace.
It was the
So,
voice, man. It was the voice. I'm sorry.
hey man,
Oh my goodness.
I don't know, man, but that's kind of where I'm at, man. I'm looking at town. I don't want to go too far, but man, I think that people use that as an excuse to not have meaningful friction. Now, I don't know what you mean by meaningful friction. I've never heard these two words together, but I understand what both of these words too, what both of these words mean. So friction is when this is friction, you know. Yeah, and I know y'all see this sometime on here and on Friday nights, right? We hear the question, and you'll see Coach do one of these, right? So we know what friction is, you know, and meaningful friction. I think sometimes people don't want to have those meaningful things because maybe they have their unrealistic view of what peace is. You know what I'm saying? And they just not really wanting to get into it because sometimes when you get into some meaningful friction, sometimes it opens up some accountability. You may see some accountability in there, and not everybody wants to be accountable. So if I can say, instead of coach coming in and saying, that's some horrible language you're using. That's not how you should be talking to people. That's not how you should be, talking to your kids. I'm just like, hey, hold up, brother. I'm trying to protect my priest, bro. Like, take that conversation somewhere else. You know what I'm saying?
You come
If
around
I
with all that negative energy.
come up here, don't come up here with all that negative energy, bro. I'm good right now.
Oh man.
Instead of getting into that meaningful friction, allowing coach to say what he has to say because he's been a parent for just as long as I have, if not a little bit longer. You know what I mean? He has learned some things as a parent that has helped him be a better parent. So because I'm trying to protect my peace and I don't want him bringing that energy over here, I don't want to have that meaningful friction. So I don't know when it started. I think at least around 2020ish, around there. Why? Everything I just said. People don't want to have to deal with the accountability that may come along with meaningful friction.
I agree. I really do believe it started before 2020, though. As far
I
as
believe so.
yeah, as far as a period of time. But I'm a kind of say this, and it's not.
Before you do, coach, don't come over here with all that negative energy, right?
I'm gonna say it.
Trying to
Well,
protect my peace.
depending upon who hears it, it might be negative energy in their mind.
Mhm.
I would say it a little different, and I think the difference that I'm saying it, you can see it consistent in every person's life. When did protecting my peace become code for refusing meaningful relationship? When I realized that I could not manipulate my way through a relationship. That's number one. Why did protecting my peace become code for refusing meaningful friction? Well, the reason why is because I'm starting to realize that every relationship, every situation, every interaction I find myself in, it is friction, but there's no meaning behind it. I think one of the most confused things I hear all the time is not just the aspect of protecting my peace, but my peace. When did we determine that you owned peace? Peace is not a thing that you own. Peace is a space in which you exist. And if you're in a peaceful space, then regardless of whatever type of friction exists, it doesn't move you outside of peace because the misnomer is that even though I'm existing in peace, there will not be any friction. Why? That doesn't make sense. I mean, think about it. I bet if you walk outside right now and in this beautiful day in the month of November, I bet you can say it's peaceful out here. It's not hot. It's not ridiculously cold yet. It's very nice. And don't do it in the middle of the night though. Do it probably like at noon. It's very nice. I got a pair. I don't have to have on a triple fat goose. I don't even know if they make those anymore. I don't have to have on a big old coat or nothing like that. But it's peaceful. But this time next week it might be raining. It might be a thunderstorm or whatever. Does that mean that peace still doesn't exist because the storm has come? And I think that's the thing that we mess up when it comes down to peace. We judge peace to based upon an outside perspective when peace must exist on the inside. If peace is on the inside, then regardless of where I go, I come in peace. I'll say that part again. Regardless of where I go, I come in peace. And if I come in peace, I am not looking to be the source of chaos. Now, if and when friction happen, it's not just random friction because somebody made a flippant statement or whatever the case may be. No, meaningful friction means that there's a huge opportunity for this relationship to improve, and that's the reason for it. In that regard, something has been revealed in this relationship to where both of us need to have a discussion about. And in the midst of this discussion where we have opposing points of views, we can come to a joyful resolution that talks about the progressive nature of this relationship. So when I look at the notion of protecting my peace, I don't want to do those things. I don't want to be in a conversation to where we can have opposing points of view without me losing my cool. Why? Because I have not been given the tools to do that yet. And so because I do not have that, and what you're telling me also challenges my perspective of what relationships should be, I don't want to do this right here. I'm protecting my peace. If you don't have nothing positive to say, I don't want to hear. What's your perspective of positive? Because if I really start peeling back the layers, I guarantee you that your perspective of positivity is rooted in a negative housing. Therefore, it itself is negative.
That was all good. That was for everything. That one was specifically for when you talked about with having peace within. So when I come, I'm coming in peace. That's huge. If you are a peaceful person, if I'm peaceful when I come to my wife to have a discussion, I'm not coming to cause chaos. I'm coming to you in peace. I'm coming to you out of peace. When I come and say something to coach, I'm coming to you in peace. A coworker, I'm coming to you in peace. When you have peace in you, I never heard that before. And
Mm.
it just sent me down. I never heard like when I have peace in me that when I'm coming to you that I'm coming in peace. So when people are coming to you and they're saying, "Oh, I got peace," I'm in a peaceful place. But then I always hear you at people. Again, I'm not here. Back to the beginning. Subjective. That subjective word. That
Hmm.
personal subjective. Going right back to that again. But bro, that was spot on, bro. I got all of that. But that piece right there, I need to go back and look at that piece again. I gotta write down times 46 through 51. And I need to go back and look at that I'm just saying 46-minute mark through the 51-minute mark. I need to go back and look at that again and listen to that again. I don't know if it's time to move on to my question. I kind of feel like I kind of think that this may be part of it. I don't want to derail the show. I don't want to go too far off. But I'm also looking at the time, and we done shot through this one real fast too. I think we only got 3 questions, maybe. Sheesh.
Yeah, we went
Um,
through yeah.
three
But go ahead.
questions. All
Yeah, but
right.
go ahead.
So here's my question. When is it okay for me to bring something to their attention? This is specifically about the healing part.
Hmm.
Again, we me and you are okay. I'm okay at any time you want to bring something to me. I don't have no problem with it at all.
Right.
But if I see, I'm going back to this friend that I have. When is it okay time for me to sit this person down and be like, look, brother, you've been dealing with this for 3 years and you still ain't got to the point. Why are you still talking about this? You know what I'm saying? Why are you not healed? Not why are you not healed? That's not for me to say or judge.
Right.
But when is it okay to bring it to that person's attention if we see that that person is not healed? And not only when, but how? You know what I mean? I know I ain't the only one who got this. I know people in the chat are listening to this and be like, I've been wanting to know this question too. And
Yeah.
because I think some of us, most of us at our age, we know somebody like that. We have a family member, a co-worker, or a friend, or a homeboy, or a sister, or somebody that we know who is still not healed about something. So when can I bring it to that person and how? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my question going forward.
You want my petty answer first?
I
My,
want the petty answer first.
my petty answer first is when you need to protect your peace. Now, I'm just
There
saying.
you go. Yeah. there,
No, but
but there's
here's
some truth to it.
there is some truth to it.
Yeah.
However, I think I can answer your question like this: when you become compassionate enough to where it crystallizes into action, I think that's the thing. When you get
Mhm.
like when you see your friend suffering because they're continuing to hold on to the past as though the
Mhm.
past just happened a few minutes ago. That's the thing that I keep talking about as it pertains to a relationship. If I call myself having a relationship with a person, then I cannot look at the relationship as a self-serving tool. And I'm not saying that that's what you're doing at all. I'm just
Mhm.
having this conversation for everybody to understand. And a lot of times, what we do in personal interactions, it's like we know, and I'm gonna use you for an example just because you're on the screen. I know that when I talk to Garfield, there's a couple of things I'm gonna hear. I already know it because I know Garfield, and I'm gonna hear those things. And at the end of the day, I've been dealing with him for the past 3 years, so I know at one point in time he's gonna bring up that one situation, right? And how it affected him, and the result of it, right? And where he is right now. I know I'm gonna hear it because I've been hearing it for the past 10, 15 times we talk. At that
Mhm.
point, I gotta recognize that, you know what? Maybe he is talking to me because he is silently crying out for help. That's the thing I don't think a lot of us hear. Sometimes, because I'll say it like this: certain relationships warrant certain conversations. You don't have painful conversations with everybody. You don't share with everybody. Say, man, I've been through divorce and I did this, and this was the results of it, and man, it set me back. And you don't have that conversation with everybody. Some people you put on the facade for because you want them to believe that all is well. Some people you feel vulnerable with just a little bit to share with them. And a lot of times it's maybe because they shared something with you, like, man, I've been through divorce too, right? But then this one person, this one friend that you got, like, bro, I don't know, man. She done moved on. I'm still stuck with all this stuff, trying to figure out how to do this and so forth and so on. And it's like, at some point, I got to have enough compassion for them to say, hey, man, can we talk about that for a second? I mean, like, really talk about it. Because I think you need to move on, right? And I'm not saying that what you've been through didn't happen. I'm not saying that what you've been through wasn't painful, but at what point do you decide that it's time to move on from that space? What was the thing that you were supposed to learn about yourself in that space? Because apparently I don't think you got it. I don't think you looked at it from that lens. You're looking at it through the emotional lens. And it's not like the emotional lens didn't exist, right? It exists in that moment in time because you did not expect what happened to happen. However, now we're beyond that piece. So do you still want to look through the emotional lens, or do you want to look through the productive lens? And the productive lens says that regardless of whatever thing you've been through in your life, there's still something that you can learn from it. So did you learn that thing? And if you have, what is that? So now what I'm trying to get him to do is refocus from the emotions to what he can learn about himself. And if he can identify what he can learn about himself, now how can we use that to move forward?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That was on point. And the thing about it is, I was in the same situation. It was three of us. I
Yeah.
got done just as wrong as he did, but that's over. Like, I could care less. I've been moved on. And when I talk to him, I'm just like, darn, like, you still talking about this? But that's my man 50 grand, and to everything, everybody is where they are in life. You know what I mean? And even though I want him to be moved on, um, this was for me too, folks. So just FYI, I got some of this too, because and I don't want him still having to keep revisit what happened 3 or 4 years ago. Like, it's over with, it's done. We've all moved on, and we've made money, we've made better relationships, we
Sure.
you know, all the other things moving forward, we're good. So
Yeah.
I want to personally thank you for answering that question. And anybody in the chat who commented on that, I definitely appreciate your 2 cents as well. So I appreciate that.
And to the person, and this kind of goes back to something you said in the beginning, because I'm sure somebody else out there in the spheres, right? YouTube, Facebook, whatever sphere they're on, they may have said the same thing. Like, who are you to determine when it's time for them to move on?
Hmm.
Well, to that person, to that question, I'm the person they're in relationship with. That's who. And if that means nothing to you, from your foxhole with the people that you're in a relationship with, I don't think those relationships are going to last much longer.
Mm.
So that's why I say a lot of times our perspective of positivity is rooted in a negative housing. Because if I am struggling with the notion of identity in relationship, then that question would be a it would be chaos in my ear when I hear it. But if I do not struggle with the notion of identity in relationship, I can easily answer that question. Who am I? I'm the person you're in a relationship with,
And I come in peace.
and I come in peace.
Mm. Man, we didn't hit some home runs today, brother.
Amen.
I'm glad we did part two.
Yeah,
Definitely glad we did part two. So where we at now? About to
you
go
know
to
what?
question 4.
You know what? I think we're going to jump. Um,
Okay.
and I think it's important to jump at this point because we live in this is a societal thing. It's not just onesies and twosies. We can see it. You can see it happening everywhere. You see on social media, like I said, they're crashing out what we used to call having fits. All of that stuff is happening. Like I said last week, people voicing their opinion about what their parents aren't doing as it pertains to their kids because they want to go hang out. You know, it's all of those things. And I think part of the problem is that we struggle because it was not taught from a perspective of power, not protection. And what do I mean when I say that? I mean that mature societies prioritize power within, not protection from. There's a power that exists in everybody, and that power is looking to be expressed. But based upon the fertility, the fertility, the fragility mindset, what ends up happening now, we ain't talking about fertility from the fragility mindset, what ends up happening is that you literally live your life feeling like you needed to be protected from something. And so what we realize is that guardians of fragility build museums, but architects of resilience build bridges. Now, I don't know how y'all say this brother name, and I'm gonna say it in my way. I'm gonna say it because it reminds me of an old song, and it's "Ah Wee Wee," right? That's it. So I'm
Ooh la la,
you
ah,
got
wee,
it. You got
wee.
it. You got it.
I say Muhammad Ali, you say Cassius
That's
Clay.
it. Who sang that song? Who sang that song? Real quick.
Oh, I can't think of it right now.
You know what, man? Come on, man. We have to put in the chat if you know. If you know who sang that song, then put it in the chat. And I give you a hint. One of the because it was a group, it was two of them. One of them name was D Nice. Um,
Think of the group. Brain farting right now. Dang.
that's right. That's right. It kind of along the lines. They had a song with Guru. It's a song called I think that song's called The Dwick. But anyway, moving right along. Sorry for the sidetrack, y'all.
I liked it.
Yeah, we get a little excited when we start talking.
Mhm.
Regions teaching communal problem solving show 30% higher collective well-being. This is based upon a United Nations happiness report. Now, that said, for the final question for today, does focusing on individual healing blind us to, and I'll say social injustice, demanding collective courage? And if so, how? Does
Mm.
focusing on individual healing blind us to social injustices, demanding collective courage?
Yes. And Imma use physical blinders, to kind of maybe talk about my point. Um, I don't know a lot about horses, but I do know horses wear blinders, especially doing races and stuff. When those blinders are, there's a piece of something that goes over the horses on the side right there, which doesn't allow them to look to the left and the right. They have to stay focused on what they're doing. So I think anytime you're focused is here, it eliminates the ability to see what's outside of certain things. So when you're focused is here, I can't see what's going on around me. Um, and for the sake of time, I'm keep it really short. Yes. Um, and to explain a little bit, if we go back to the situation, that person, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go. I want to move forward and stay where we at.
Sure.
Um, if I'm focused on myself, I'm focused on Unc. I have this gonna come back on me. But it is what it is. I don't mind. I can accept the accountability. I am I'm pretty disciplined in certain areas of my life. And sometimes I have been known to be so focused on individual healing, getting up at a certain amount of time, doing the meditation, doing the working out, doing, spending hours or days, reading and taking in things to heal, because I believe that I have to take care of me before I can take care, outside people, my wife, my circle, podcast, all these other things. And I think when I do that, sometimes I can tend to forget what's going on the outside sometimes. I'm like, oh snap, well, I had this going on. Well, I've been so hyper focused right here that it hasn't allowed the ability to see the injustice and all of these other different things that's going on around me. So that's kind of where I want to land right there. Is I think that anytime you're focused on one thing, it prevents you sometimes from working on other areas. I get a perfect last example, and then I'll stop. In the military, at the APFT, do about twice a year. Hey, came up a little short in the push-ups. So for the next time time to take the APFT, I am focused on doing my push-ups. And what usually happens is my sit-ups tend to decline a little bit, and my run tend to declines a little bit. So that's an example I've seen plenty of times in the military where someone was focused on one thing. Now I'm using physical stuff, but this involves healing just as well too.
Sure.
And sometimes we forget and we just don't see a lot of the other things going on around. And that's where balance is very important.
Yeah. I agree. Um, I think there a lot of times when we go through things, I think part of us already know that this thing that I'm going through, even though I'm going through it, other people went through it as well. But because, like you mentioned, the horse blinders, right? But because I am so hyper focused on me going through it, I fail to realize in that particular moment that other people are doing it. Now, how does that connect to the social injustice piece? Because eventually we get to the point to where we have this mindset to where that if it's not knocking on my front door, it's not my problem. But that part is like the worst thought, the worst mindset that you can actually have. Like you said, and I like the fact that you said this, that the reason why I heal within so I can help heal without. And I think that's the piece. When I'm going through a thing, I have to focus on self in order to get through it. But once I come out the other side, then I got to hold my head up and look around, because the reason why I went through the thing is so I can help others who are still trying to deal with or go through the thing that we went through. You put the horse blinders on to run the race. Once the race is over, you take the blinders off the horse, man. You don't have the horse still, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't run the race like, I don't know where I'm
Yeah.
going. You know what I'm saying? No, because you got to realize the track is just a circular track. That's all. So it's not a lot of steering and stuff like that. We have to get to the point to where recognizing that we were all placed here to serve people. My inability to get to the point of becoming a better version of myself, it prevents me from being there to help somebody else get to the point where they become a better version of themselves. And so what you end up having is you have a society full of self-centered people because we all got our own problems going on. Sure. But can I get to the point to where I am healed to such a degree that I don't even have to focus on the concerns that I am dealing with because it's not that big. Let me reach out to Garfield because I do understand he is dealing with something that's far more egregious than what I'm dealing with right now. And my little concern, it ain't that big of a deal. But let me still reach out to him. You know what I'm saying? Because who knows? I don't know who else is reaching out to him. I don't know if anybody else is talking to him right now. but I know what's going on with him. So because me knowing, I now have a responsibility because I'm in a relationship with him. And then if he does the same thing to somebody else, and so forth and so on, now we have a network of people who are not self-serving. And that network of selfless individuals recognize that, sure, there are some injustices out there. Some things we can help soothe the frustrations and pains that are dealing with, right? Some people are going to, stand up, picket, whatever that looks like, march, do all those different things. There are different areas of service that we can function in, but that collective courage means that I don't necessarily have the fear of what's going to happen to me as a response for me doing the right thing. And I think that's the part that we have to get to. So that's just my thoughts, man, and I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And to my trivia question, I know somebody probably done found it already. That group name is Nice and Smooth.
Nice and smooth.
Nice and Smooth.
All this stuff
Yep.
about
There you
me.
go.
Why don't they just let me
That's
leave?
Bobby Brown, bro.
Oh man, I think I didn't switch it. I think I didn't got into it and then switch to Bobby Brown.
He was on punishment. You
I am. I'm on punishment. Fire me, y'all. Fire me.
listen, man. We're gonna
Anyway,
forego the final thoughts today, because I think there was a lot of great information that came out in this conversation. Man, go back and watch this show. Share it with somebody else. Share it with somebody who you think might be in the situation that needs to hear some of the stuff. Who do you know that's stuck in the counseling loop to where they feel like they need their counselor? They're dependent on their counselor. They've been in counseling and therapy for the past 2, 3 years. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. That's not my decision to make. But if you are connected to that person, you're in a relation, send this to them. Have them to take a look at it, right? Then just afterwards, then just talk to them and ask them what are their thoughts based upon it. I think you might be amazed at what you may be able to help somebody with just by simply introducing the conversation to them. Oh,
yeah.
off punishment right now, bro. Any
Uh,
final thoughts for the people?
Man, no, I don't got nothing, man. This was good, man. I appreciate you answering that question for me and all of the other people who may have had that question too. So, personally, thank you for that specific question, man. But I thank you for us having these last conversations about healing these last couple of weeks. I think it is something that most people experience or have to go through at some point in their life. And the more you know about healing, I think the better we all are off for it going forward in our lives. I don't know anybody who has never had to heal from anything. Everybody I've talked to have shared with me something that they've went through and that they've had to go through. And most of the times when you have something to go through, there is a time in which we do need to heal. And even if you haven't, maybe you never had any emotional healing, but there's maybe it was physical, but it's the same thing. There's a certain amount of time it takes for you to go through it. I got a rope burn, carpet burn on my knee from 1993 when I was at Liberty University. You know what I mean? We was playing football. Let me clean it up. We was playing football on a Sunday. It was a whole bunch of us. We was in the stadium and we weren't supposed
Woo!
to be in there. Yep. And we was over on the turf and they kicked us off. But before we got off, man, I was running the ball and I did something. And I had a big old carpet burn on my knee. You know what I mean? We out there playing, and to this day, it's still there. But when I look at that on my knee, I'm not taken back there. I see it all the time, but I'm not in that moment of excitement. Oh man, this would happen. And the same thing on the negative side too. A lot of us have some physical times, but you one way we know that we're healed is we're not necessarily taken back to that place, especially the negative stuff when those things come up. It's just what I believe. If I'm struggling with you know, whatever,
Yeah,
some DV or something like that. And every time, someone comes around, I'm jumping. I'm probably not healed from that yet.
yeah.
So that's my little 2 cents final thought
And
in that.
I'm glad you said that because
Mhm.
there are some, and that's one of the things we pointed out last show. There are some things that people need to seek counseling to get.
Mhm.
It was a
Yep.
traumatic event right? You experience it, you need to be healed from
Yeah.
that. But all these other things that we're calling trauma, it's not trauma. It's just ebbs, it's just the ebbs and flow of life. If you've been in a relationship and you broke up, deal with it. It happened. Everybody goes through it, right? So I
Mhm.
just kind of want to put that. Last thing I want to say is that there is no such thing as I'm too old for. We made that up simply because I don't want you to challenge the thing that I'm doing right now. And 9 times out of 10, I know the things that I'm doing right now is not cohesive for a relationship. But at the end of the day, I'm a senior, so I'm too old to change. It's not true.
Mhm.
They made that up. And shout out to Unc for cleaning up the carpet burn statement. I just want to make sure I say that. Listen, we love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening and let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else.